The grand hall of the Galactic Council Station gleamed with lights from 1,000 worlds. Captain Taemin Kang stood near the refreshment area, watching the crowd of alien dignitaries. His dark uniform marked him as a human officer, still a rare sight in these gatherings. Earth had joined the galactic community only 3 years ago, and many species still viewed humans as newcomers who did not belong. Taemin had attended many such receptions, always careful to observe and learn. He knew that one wrong move could damage Earth's reputation. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, waited in orbit above the station. His crew trusted him to represent humanity well. Across the hall, Princess Nari of the Veltron Empire held court among admirers. She was young, only 19 by her species' measure of time. Her silver skin shimmered under the lights, and her elaborate robes marked her royal status. The Velthrons controlled a large portion of this sector of space. Their empire had existed for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Taemin had no intention of approaching her. He preferred to avoid unnecessary diplomatic complications. But Ambassador Hyun Choi, Earth's senior representative, had other plans. The ambassador appeared at Taemin's side with a practiced smile. "Captain, I need you to meet Princess Nari. It would be good for relations between our peoples." The ambassador spoke quietly but firmly. Taemin wanted to refuse, but he understood duty. He followed the ambassador through the crowd toward the princess. Other species moved aside for them, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden contempt. Humans were still proving themselves worthy of respect in galactic society. Princess Nari noticed their approach. Her eyes, large and golden, swept over Taemin with obvious disinterest. The ambassador made formal introductions, speaking the common galactic language that all species used for trade and diplomacy. "Your Highness, may I present Captain Taemin Kang of the human vessel Horizon's Edge." The princess looked Taemin up and down slowly. A small smile played on her lips, but it held no warmth. Several nearby dignitaries turned to watch. The conversation in that part of the hall grew quiet. "A human captain," she said, her voice carrying clearly. "How interesting. Tell me, Captain, do your people understand the honor of standing in the presence of true civilization? Or are you still too busy playing with primitive rockets to grasp such concepts?" The insult landed like a physical blow. Ambassador Choi stiffened beside Taemin. The watching aliens reacted with various degrees of shock and amusement. Such direct rudeness was unusual even in diplomatic circles where insults were often wrapped in polite words. But the princess was not finished. She stepped closer to Taemin, looking up at him with mock curiosity. "You know, I have studied your species. Barely evolved primates, really. You discovered fire only yesterday in galactic terms, and now you wear uniforms and pretend to understand diplomacy. It would be amusing if it were not so sad. Do you even comprehend the words I am saying, or should I speak more slowly?" The hall had gone completely silent now. Everyone waited for the human's response. In Velthron culture, such an insult demanded action. The insulted party would either challenge the speaker, protest loudly, or submit with apologies. Those were the only acceptable responses. Taemin looked at Princess Nari for a long moment. His face showed nothing, no anger, no hurt, no fear, just calm observation as if he were studying an interesting specimen in a laboratory. Then he did something that no one expected. He turned around and walked away, not quickly, as if fleeing. Not slowly, as if making a show. He simply turned on his heel and walked at a normal pace toward the exit. He did not look back. He did not speak. He offered no explanation or defense. Ambassador Choi stared after him in shock. Princess Nari's mouth fell open. The watching crowd did not know how to react. This response existed nowhere in their understanding of protocol and honor. The princess recovered first, though confusion clouded her features. She turned to her attendants with forced laughter. Well, the primitive cannot even defend himself. How pathetic, but her voice lacked conviction. Something about the human's complete indifference had unsettled her. She had wanted anger or submission. She had received neither. Instead, she had been dismissed as not worth acknowledging. Ambassador Choi made hasty apologies and followed Taemin out of the hall. He found the captain waiting by the transport station completely calm. "Captain, what just happened? You walked away from a direct insult. The princess will think we are weak." Taemin looked at his ambassador with patient eyes. "She can think whatever she wants, Ambassador. Her opinion does not matter to me." She wanted a reaction. She wanted power over the situation. I gave her nothing. That is far more insulting than any words I could have said. The ambassador started to respond, then stopped. A slow smile spread across his face as understanding dawned. You denied her the satisfaction. Exactly. Now if you will excuse me, I have a ship to return to. My crew is waiting. As Taemin boarded the transport, word of the incident was already spreading through the station. The human captain had done the impossible. He had walked away without a word, leaving a princess speechless and a hall full of witnesses wondering what it meant. In trying to humiliate humanity, Princess Nari had started something she did not yet understand. The quiet human had made a statement far louder than any shout. The news spread through the Galactic Council station like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, every diplomat and military officer had heard about the incident. The human captain who walked away without a word became the subject of intense discussion and debate. On the horizon's edge, Commander Jiwon Park waited in the briefing room with Dr. Minho Lee and Lieutenant Sora Han. When Captain Taemin entered, they all stood. He waved them back to their seats and poured himself a cup of tea before sitting down. I assume you have heard about the reception, Taemin said calmly. Lieutenant Sora could not contain herself. She was young and passionate about Earth's honor. Captain, with respect, you should have said something. That princess insulted all of humanity, not just you. We cannot let them think we are weak. Taemin sipped his tea slowly before responding. Lieutenant, tell me something. When a child throws a tantrum in a store demanding attention, what is the worst thing you can do to that child? Sora frowned, confused by the question. Dr. Lee smiled slightly, beginning to understand. Ignore them, the doctor said. Give them no attention at all. Exactly, Taemin nodded. That princess wanted a reaction. Any reaction. If I had argued with her, she would have won. If I had gotten angry, she would have won. If I had apologized, she definitely would have won. By walking away, I told her and everyone watching that her opinion means nothing to me, that her words have no power. Commander Jiwon leaned forward. She was more tactical in her thinking. But what about the other species? What will they think? They will think about it, Taemin said. And that is exactly what I want. They will debate and discuss. Some will call it weakness. Others will see it as strength. But all of them will remember that humans do not play by the expected rules. That makes us unpredictable. Unpredictable opponents are dangerous opponents. On the Velthron homeworld, Princess Nari sat in her private chambers, unable to sleep. The human's face kept appearing in her mind, that calm, unreadable expression, the way he simply turned and left as if she did not exist. She had never been dismissed like that before. People feared her family's power. They showed respect, or at least pretended to. But this human had offered neither fear nor respect. He had offered nothing at all. And somehow that felt worse than any insult he could have spoken. Her father, Emperor Jarek, summoned her the next morning. She entered his throne room with less confidence than usual. Advisor Theron stood beside the Emperor, his old eyes thoughtful. Daughter, the Emperor said without preamble, you insulted the human captain yesterday. Yes, father. He was disrespectful in his silence, was he? Advisor Theron spoke softly. Or were you disrespectful in your words and he simply chose not to waste his time correcting you? Nari bristled. She was not used to being questioned. The humans are primitives. Everyone knows this. Everyone believes this, Theron corrected. But I have been studying their history since yesterday. Princess, these humans fought wars that would have destroyed our empire. They used weapons that turned entire cities to glass and ash. They nearly made their own planet uninhabitable, yet they survived and rebuilt. They reached the stars despite every setback. Emperor Jarek shifted on his throne, suddenly interested. What are you saying, old friend? I am saying that a species which can survive its own worst nature is not primitive. It is tested. And a species that can walk away from insults without flinching is not weak. It is disciplined. We may have underestimated them. At the Galactic Council, Speaker Zirath called an informal meeting. Ambassador Hyun Choi attended, knowing many species wanted answers. A representative from the Korthan Union spoke first, his voice filled with curiosity. Ambassador Choi, can you explain your captain's behavior? In our culture, silence in the face of insult means acceptance of inferior status. Hyun Choi stood and addressed the gathered diplomats with practiced ease. In human culture, when someone is not worth your time or respect, you simply do not give them any. Captain Kang determined that the princess's words did not deserve a response. He treated her as irrelevant to his life and purpose. That is not acceptance of inferior status. That is rejection of the entire framework she tried to impose. The explanation created more discussion than clarity. Several species found the concept fascinating. Others found it disturbing. But all agreed that humans were more complex than they had assumed. Back on the horizon's edge, Dr. Lee worked on a detailed report about human-Velthran cultural differences. He wrote carefully, knowing his words would be read throughout the galactic community. Lieutenant Sora entered his laboratory with a cup of coffee for him. "Doctor, I have been thinking about what the captain said. Do you really think walking away was the right choice?" Dr. Lee looked up from his work and smiled. "Lieutenant, let me ask you this. Who is talking about the incident right now?" "Everyone. And what are they saying about humans?" Sora thought for a moment. "That we are different, unpredictable, maybe dangerous." "Exactly. Before yesterday, they thought we were primitive and harmless. Now they think we might be something else entirely." The captain changed the entire conversation without speaking a single word. "That, Lieutenant, is power." Princess Nari continued to research humanity throughout the night. What she discovered did not comfort her. These humans had history written in blood and fire. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Yet they were still here, reaching for the stars with steady hands. For the first time in her sheltered life, the princess wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. 5 days had passed since the incident. Princess Nari could not stop thinking about the human captain. She spent hours in the Imperial Library, searching through records about Earth and its people. What she found disturbed her more with each passing hour. The humans had fought something called the World Wars. Millions dead. Entire cities destroyed. Yet they rebuilt. Then came the nuclear age, weapons that could end all life on their planet. They came close to using them, but somehow stepped back from that edge. More recently, the resource wars had raged across Mars and the asteroid belt. Humans fighting humans for survival. These were not the peaceful primitives she had imagined. These were survivors. Warriors who had been tested by their own worst impulses and emerged stronger. In the Velthran Military Command Center, General Kale presented his plan to Emperor Jarek. Holographic displays showed Velthran warships positioned near human space. "Your Majesty, we must respond to this insult." The princess was humiliated, and by extension so was the Empire. "I propose military exercises near human mining operations. Nothing aggressive, just a reminder of our power." Advisor Theron shook his head. "General, I advise against this. We know very little about human military capabilities. They have only recently joined the galactic community, but their history suggests they are far from helpless." "They have a handful of ships," Kale scoffed. "We have hundreds. This will be a simple demonstration." Emperor Jarek was torn. His pride demanded action. But Theron had served his family for decades with wise counsel. Finally, he made his decision. "Proceed with the exercises, General, but make no aggressive moves. This is a show of presence, nothing more." On Earth, military intelligence detected the Velthran fleet movements immediately. Admiral Hana Song convened an emergency meeting with the Defense Council. Ambassador Choi joined via secured communication. 3 Velthran heavy cruisers are moving toward our mining operations in the Kepler sector, the Admiral reported. Their stated purpose is military exercises. They are trying to intimidate us, said General Dae Ho Kim. "We should move our fleet to defensive positions." Ambassador Choi spoke calmly from the screen. "Move ships into position quietly, but do not change our mining operations. Continue as if nothing is happening. Let them come. Let them see that we are not afraid." Captain Yoonji Kwon received her orders aboard the warship Steadfast. Her mission was simple: maintain human presence and operations in the Kepler sector. Do not provoke. Do not retreat. Meanwhile, Dr. Min-Ho Lee published his cultural analysis report. It was written in careful academic language, but its message was devastating. He argued that Velthran culture relied on hierarchy and dominance displays that humanity had evolved beyond during its violent history. The report suggested that what Velthran saw as strength, humans saw as insecurity requiring constant validation. The report circulated through the Galactic Council within hours. Many species found it fascinating. The Velthrans found it infuriating. Princess Nari read the report 3 times. Each time she felt her certainty about human inferiority crumble a little more. The doctor wrote with such calm precision, never raising his voice, never insulting directly. Yet every word suggested that the Velthrons were the primitive ones, still playing games that humans had outgrown. She went to Advisor Theron, finding him in his study surrounded by human historical documents. "Advisor, you have been studying the humans. Tell me truly, are they dangerous?" Theron looked at her with his ancient eyes. "Princess, I will show you something." He activated a holographic display showing footage from human history, soldiers holding defensive positions against impossible odds, cities being rebuilt after nuclear devastation, scientists working in radiation-scarred laboratories to save their dying world, ship after ship launching toward the stars despite repeated failures. "These people," Theron said softly, "have survived their own worst nightmare. They have stared into the abyss of extinction and chose to keep fighting." "That captain who walked away from your insult?" He did not need to respond because he has already faced things far more frightening than an angry princess. "Our empire is 3,000 years old, but we have never been tested the way humanity has tested itself." Nari watched the images, feeling cold inside. "Then are we making a mistake with these military exercises?" "I fear we are about to find out," Theron replied. In the Kepler sector, the Veltron cruisers arrived. General Kale commanded the operation from his flagship. He expected the human miners to flee or call for help. Instead, they continued working. Human mining ships moved between asteroids as if nothing unusual was happening. Captain Quan watched from the Steadfast, which held position near the mining operation. Her tactical officer reported the Veltron positions. "Captain, they are definitely trying to intimidate us. Should we respond?" "No, continue normal operations. Track their every movement. Weapons ready but not armed. Let them do their exercises." General Kale grew frustrated. The humans were not reacting properly. They should be afraid or angry. Instead, they simply ignored the Veltron presence. He sent a message to the human vessels demanding they leave the area for safety during the exercises. Captain Quan responded with 3 words. Negative. Our space. The situation had begun to escalate. The Velthrons had expected to demonstrate power and watch humans scramble. Instead, they faced calm defiance. General Kale realized he had 2 choices: back down and appear weak, or push harder and risk actual conflict. He chose to push harder, not yet understanding that humans had already survived far worse than anything he could threaten them with. Day 1 of the standoff passed with tense silence. The Veltron cruisers performed their exercises, making aggressive maneuvers near human positions. The humans continued mining operations, their weapons tracking every Veltron movement but never firing. General Kale grew more frustrated by the hour. His tactical displays showed human ships maintaining perfect formation, their targeting systems locked onto his vessels with disturbing precision. These were not the actions of frightened primitives. On the second day, Kale ordered mock attack runs on human mining positions. His pilots swept past the human vessels, weapon systems active, but not fired. It was meant to terrify them into leaving. Captain Quan watched the Veltron fighters approach her position. Her hands remained steady on her command console. "All stations maintain course, do not deviate. Track all targets but hold fire." The Veltron fighters screamed past, close enough that their energy wakes shook the human ships. But not a single human vessel moved from its position. The mining continued. The message was clear. You do not scare us. On the Veltron flagship, General Kale's officers exchanged worried glances. Their commander was painted into a corner. He could not back down without losing face, but he could not attack without starting a war. On the Veltron homeworld, Advisor Theron finally convinced Emperor Jarek to watch the human historical footage he had compiled. They sat in the Emperor's private viewing chamber as images played across the walls. The World Wars. Trenches filled with mud and blood. Cities burning under bombing raids. Soldiers advancing despite knowing they would die. The nuclear age. Mushroom clouds rising over cities. Children practicing hiding under desks as if that would save them. 2 superpowers with enough weapons to destroy their entire planet, yet somehow choosing not to. The resource wars. Battles in the cold vacuum of space. Mining colonies destroyed. Entire generations growing up knowing only conflict. yet still pushing forward, still reaching for the stars. Emperor Jarek watched in silence. When the footage ended, he sat still for a long moment. "This is what they survived?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "And that captain who walked away from the princess?" "He lived through the final years of their resource wars. He watched friends die in the void of space. He has already seen the worst that war can offer." The Emperor stood and walked to the window overlooking his capital city. Theron joined him. "Our empire has existed for 3,000 years, Jarek said quietly. "In all that time, we have never faced extinction. We have never had to make the choice between survival and annihilation. These humans have made that choice multiple times and survived each one. What does that make them?" "Dangerous, Your Majesty. Very dangerous. Not because they want war, but because they are not afraid of it. They know they can survive it if they must." Princess Nari entered the chamber, having been summoned by her father. She saw the expression on his face and understood immediately that something had changed. "Father?" "Daughter, I have made a decision. General Kale will withdraw from human space immediately. This show of force was a mistake. But Father, the general will protest. He will say we appear weak." Emperor Jarek turned to face his daughter. "True strength is knowing when not to fight. The humans have shown us this. We came to intimidate them, but they will not be intimidated. Continuing this confrontation serves no purpose except to risk a war we might not win. A wise leader knows when to change course." He sent the message to General Kale immediately. The general protested, as expected, but the Emperor was firm. "General, you will withdraw. This is not a request. The humans have shown they will not back down, and I will not start a war over my daughter's wounded pride. We will find another way to establish relations with them." In the Kepler sector, Day 3 of the standoff had begun. Captain Kwan received an urgent message from Earth Command. More human warships were quietly moving into position just in case. The situation was minutes away from becoming a shooting war. Then the Velthron cruisers began to withdraw. Slowly, maintaining formation, but definitely leaving. General Kale sent one final message to the human vessels. "Human vessels, our exercises are complete. We are departing the area." Captain Kwan allowed herself a small smile before responding. "Acknowledged. Safe travels." Her crew erupted in quiet celebration as the Velthron ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel. They had stood their ground against a superior force and won without firing a shot. News of the standoff and its peaceful resolution spread through the Galactic Council. The humans had faced down Velthron military power with nothing but calm determination. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive began to reconsider. Captain Taemin Kang received a message from Captain Kwan describing the situation. He read it carefully, then sent a brief reply. "Well done. You showed them what humans are made of." On the Velthron homeworld, Princess Nari watched footage of the standoff. She saw the human ships refusing to move, their perfect discipline, their quiet confidence. She thought about the captain who had walked away from her insult. She finally understood what that silence had meant. He had not been weak. He had not been afraid. He simply had not needed to prove anything to her. And now her entire empire had learned the same lesson. These humans were not primitives to be dismissed. They were survivors who had earned their place among the stars through trials the Velthrons could barely imagine. Respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned. And perhaps Nari thought it was time she learned to earn things rather than simply expecting them because of her birth. 3 weeks after the standoff, a formal message arrived at the Galactic Council station. Emperor Jarek requested a meeting with human leadership to discuss future relations. The request was worded carefully, avoiding any hint of apology but clearly seeking dialogue. Ambassador Hyun Choi read the message with satisfaction. Earth Command approved the meeting and chose their representatives. Ambassador Choi would lead the delegation, accompanied by Captain Taemin Kang and Dr. Minho Lee. The message was clear. Humanity valued both diplomatic skill and military strength. The meeting took place in a neutral conference chamber on the station. The Velthron delegation arrived first, impressive in their numbers and pageantry. Emperor Jarek wore ceremonial robes that spoke of his ancient authority. Advisor Theron stood at his right hand. General Kale was present but silent, his face showing displeasure. Princess Nari stood slightly behind her father, her expression unreadable. The human delegation arrived with only 3 people. No ceremony. No pageantry, just competence and quiet confidence. The contrast itself was a statement. They took their seats across from each other. Emperor Jarek spoke first, following diplomatic protocol. Ambassador Choi, Captain Kang, Dr. Lee. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Recent events have shown that our peoples perhaps do not understand each other as well as we should. I hope we can begin to change that today. Ambassador Choi nodded politely. Your Majesty, we appreciate the invitation. Humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species. However, we must establish clear understanding. We are not children to be lectured. We are not inferiors to be dismissed. We are a sovereign people who have earned our place among the stars. The words were spoken calmly but with absolute firmness. General Kale stirred angrily, but Emperor Jarek raised a hand to silence him. Your point is well taken, Ambassador. I must acknowledge that my daughter's words at the reception were inappropriate. She spoke from ignorance, not malice. Captain Taman spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but carrying perfectly through the chamber. Your Majesty, with respect, the princess is 19 years old enough to think for herself. She chose to insult me publicly because she believed I would either submit or rage, giving her power over the situation. I chose not to play that game. I have no interest in your hierarchy or where your people think humanity belongs in it. We know our worth. The room fell silent. Princess Nari felt every eye turned toward her. This was the moment she had been preparing for. She stood, her hands trembling slightly but her voice steady. Captain Kang, you are right. I was 19 years old, not a child. I spoke those words by choice, not by accident. I have spent these past weeks studying your people, learning your history. I insulted you because I believed humans were beneath my civilization. I was wrong. She took a breath, forcing herself to continue. Your people have survived trials that would have destroyed the Veltran Empire. You have faced extinction multiple times and chosen to keep fighting. You reached the stars not because it was easy, but because you refused to give up. I spoke from arrogance and ignorance. I apologize not just to you but to all of humanity for my disrespect. The apology was genuine. Everyone in the room could hear it in her voice. Ambassador Choi and Dr. Lee exchanged glances, impressed despite themselves. Taman looked at the princess for a long moment. He saw real understanding in her eyes now, not the dismissive arrogance from their first meeting. He stood and gave a slight bow. Your apology is accepted, Princess Nari. It takes more strength to admit fault than to defend a position you know is wrong. You have shown that strength today. Emperor Jarek visibly relaxed. Advisor Theron smiled. Even General Kale looked less hostile than before. The rest of the meeting proceeded more smoothly. They discussed trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense considerations. Dr. Lee proposed a scholarly exchange that would allow humans and Veltrans to learn from each other. Princess Nari volunteered to participate, genuinely wanting to understand the species she had insulted. As the meeting concluded, Princess Nari approached Captain Taman privately. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course, Princess. When you walked away that day, were you angry with me? Taman considered the question carefully. No, I was not angry. Anger requires caring about someone's opinion. You were a stranger trying to make me feel small. I simply had no interest in participating in that exchange. I have faced things far more frightening than words from someone who did not know me. Nari nodded slowly. That is what I feared most. Not that you were angry, but that you simply did not care. In my world, everyone cares what the royal family thinks, but you did not. That was more powerful than any insult you could have given me. Perhaps that is something you needed to learn, Taman said gently. Not everyone will care about your title or your status. Some will judge you by your actions and your character. Today you showed good character. That matters more than any crown. Princess Nari bowed, a gesture of respect in Veltran culture. Thank you, Captain. I hope we can speak again during the cultural exchange. I have much to learn from your people. And we from yours, Princess. That is what makes peace valuable. Both sides grow stronger. As the delegations departed, Ambassador Choi walked beside Captain Taman. That went better than I expected. The princess surprised me. Taman nodded. People can change when they face reality instead of living in comfortable assumptions. She faced reality. Now she grows. That is worth respecting. The foundation for a genuine alliance had been laid, built not on power or threat but on mutual respect earned through honesty and character. 2 months passed. The cultural exchange program between humanity and the Velthron Empire progressed better than anyone had hoped. Princess Nari spent much of her time aboard human vessels and on Earth itself, learning about the civilization she had once dismissed as primitive. She walked through the ruins of old cities that had been destroyed in the world wars, now preserved as monuments. She visited the research facilities on Mars where scientists worked to make the Red Planet habitable. She spoke with veterans of the resource wars who told stories of sacrifice and survival. Each experience changed her a little more. The arrogant princess was becoming a thoughtful leader. Dr. Minho Lee worked closely with Velthron scholars, sharing knowledge about xenobiology and cultural development. The Velthrons had advanced technology in certain areas that humans found fascinating. In return, human adaptability and creative problem-solving impressed the Velthrons. A genuine partnership was forming, based not on hierarchy, but on mutual respect. Then the crisis came. The Kryn Collective, a militaristic species from a neighboring sector, had watched the conflict between humans and Velthrons with interest. They saw the diplomatic resolution as weakness. Both species, they believed, were too soft to resist proper aggression. The Kryn attacked a trading post in disputed territory, killing everyone there. They claimed the territory as their own and dared anyone to challenge them. The trading post had been jointly operated by humans and Velthrons. News of the attack reached both Earth and the Velthron homeworld simultaneously. The response was swift. Ambassador Choi contacted Emperor Jarek directly within the hour. Captain Taemin and Princess Nari, who were both on the Galactic Council station for meetings, met immediately to discuss options. This was a joint facility, Taemin said quietly, studying the attack reports. They killed both our peoples. The Kryn clearly want to provoke us. Nari nodded, her face hard with anger. They believe we are weak because we chose peace over continued conflict. They think we will argue over who should respond while they consolidate their gains. Then we prove them wrong, Taemin said. He looked at Nari with a slight smile. Princess, would you be interested in a joint military operation? Her eyes widened, then she smiled back. I think my father would find that very interesting indeed. The proposal went up through both chains of command rapidly. Earth leadership and Emperor Jarek both saw the strategic value immediately. This was not just about revenge for the attack. This was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity and the Velthron Empire stood together. Within 48 hours, a joint fleet assembled. Captain Taemin's Horizon's Edge and Captain Yoonji Kwan's Steadfast joined with 3 Velthron cruisers under General Kyle's command. The general had been skeptical of working with humans, but orders were orders. Princess Nari served as official liaison between the two forces, working from the Horizon's Edge alongside Commander Jiwon Park. The princess had learned much in her time with humans, and now she would put that knowledge to use. The fleet entered the disputed territory and found the Kryn occupying the trading post with 5 warships. The Kryn commander sent a mocking message. Turn back, or you will share the fate of those who died here. This territory belongs to the Kryn Collective now. Captain Taemin and General Kale responded together, their message broadcast on all channels. This is Captain Taemin Kang of the Human Fleet and General Kale of the Velthron Empire. You have attacked a joint facility and murdered citizens of both our peoples. You have one opportunity to withdraw. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. The Kryn laughed at the message. They believed they faced a divided, hesitant force. They were wrong. The battle was swift and decisive. Human ships used unconventional tactics, hitting from unexpected angles and retreating before the Kryn could respond effectively. Velthron heavy weapons delivered devastating firepower at key moments. The coordination was nearly perfect, with Princess Nari and Commander Park managing communications between the two fleets seamlessly. Within 2 hours, 3 Kryn ships were disabled and the other 2 were fleeing. Not a single human or Veltron vessel had been destroyed. The Kryn had expected to face divided opponents hesitant to work together. Instead, they faced a unified force that combined the best of both civilizations. General Kale contacted Captain Taman after the battle, his voice filled with grudging respect. "Captain, your people fight well. That maneuver where you used our heavy cruisers as cover while your smaller ships flanked the enemy was brilliant." Taman smiled. "And your weapons platforms provided exactly the firepower we needed at exactly the right moments, General. This is what partnership looks like, each side contributing their strengths." They sent a joint message to the Galactic Council, warning that any aggression against human or Velthron interests would be met with a unified response. The message was clear. These two civilizations that had nearly gone to war over an insult had become allies who would defend each other. Princess Nari stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge watching the stars. Captain Taman joined her. "Thinking about what might have been?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "If you had responded to my insult with anger, we might have become enemies. Our peoples might have gone to war. Instead, you walked away and now we stand here as allies. Sometimes I think about how one moment, one choice can change everything." "That is true," Taman agreed. "But you made a choice too, Princess. You could have doubled down on your pride. Instead, you chose to learn and grow. That took courage." She turned to him with a smile. "I learned from the best teacher. A man who showed me that true strength means knowing when to walk away and when to stand firm." 6 months had passed since the battle with the Kryn Collective. The galaxy had watched in amazement as humans and Veltrans transformed from near enemies to close allies. Other species began to reconsider their relationships with both civilizations. The formal treaty ceremony was scheduled for today. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council Station had been prepared for the occasion. Hundreds of dignitaries from dozens of species gathered to witness the historic moment. Ambassador Hyun Choi stood near the signing table, reviewing the treaty documents one final time. The agreement covered mutual defense, trade cooperation, scientific exchange, and cultural programs. But more than the specific terms, it represented a new kind of relationship in galactic politics. Two species had chosen partnership over hierarchy. Emperor Jarek arrived with his delegation. Princess Nari walked beside him, no longer the arrogant youth who had insulted a human captain, but a respected diplomat in her own right. She had spent months working to build understanding between their peoples, and her efforts had been crucial to the treaty negotiations. Captain Taman Kang stood with the Earth delegation, wearing his formal uniform. Lieutenant Sora Han was beside him, finally understanding why her captain had walked away that day. Commander Jiwon Park and Dr. Minho Lee completed the group, all of them proud to witness this moment. The ceremony began with speeches from various dignitaries. Council Speaker Zeroth spoke about the importance of finding peaceful solutions to conflicts. Several ambassadors from other species praised both humans and Veltrons for their mature handling of their initial disagreement. When it came time for the actual signing, Ambassador Choi and Emperor Jarek approached the table together. They signed with careful ceremony, their signatures marking the beginning of a new alliance. Then Emperor Jarek did something unexpected. He stepped back and gestured for Princess Nari and Captain Taman to come forward. "This treaty exists because of two people," the Emperor said to the gathered crowd. "My daughter, who had the courage to admit she was wrong, and Captain Kang, who had the wisdom to walk away from an insult rather than respond with anger. They showed us that strength comes in many forms. I want them to sign as witnesses to this historic alliance." Nari and Taman stepped to the table. The crowd watched in silence as they added their signatures below those of their leaders. When they finished, they turned to face each other. Princess Nari spoke, her voice carrying through the hall. "Captain Kang, on behalf of the Velthran Empire and personally, thank you. You taught me that silence can be more powerful than words, that walking away can be stronger than standing to fight. That respect must be earned, not demanded. You changed not just my views, but the views of my entire civilization." Taman bowed slightly. "Princess Nari, you taught us something equally valuable. You showed that people can grow and change when they face the truth, that admitting error takes more courage than defending pride. Your civilization showed wisdom when it counted most. That is why we stand here as allies today." The hall erupted in applause. The ceremony continued with celebrations, but many observers would remember that exchange between the princess and the captain as the true heart of the day. Later that evening, a smaller reception was held for the key figures involved in creating the alliance. Taman found himself in conversation with General Kale, who had become surprisingly friendly after fighting alongside human forces. "Captain, I must admit something," the general said, holding a drink. "When I first heard about your response to the princess, I thought you were weak. I pushed for military action because I believed humans would fold under pressure. I was wrong about everything." Taman smiled. "You were not wrong about everything, General. You were right that humans can fight when necessary. You just did not realize we also know when not to fight. Both skills matter, indeed. Your species has a saying I have learned. Choose your battles." Wise words. Across the room, Princess Nari spoke with Dr. Lee about future cultural exchange programs. Ambassador Choi discussed trade routes with Veltron merchants. The two civilizations were already working together as if they had been allies for years. As the reception wound down, one of the alien ambassadors approached Nari with curiosity evident in his expression. "Princess, I have been meaning to ask. How did this remarkable transformation happen? Just months ago, tensions were high between your peoples. Now you stand as close allies. What changed?" Nari smiled, glancing across the room at Captain Taman. "I insulted him and he walked away without a word. It was the best education I ever received." The ambassador looked confused, clearly expecting a more complex explanation. But Nari did not elaborate. The lesson was simple. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes walking away is the bravest action. Sometimes refusing to play someone else's game is the ultimate victory. Humanity had proven itself worthy of respect, not through superior weapons or aggressive expansion, but through character, wisdom, and the quiet confidence that comes from having survived the worst and emerged stronger. As the evening ended, Captain Taman stood by the observation window looking out at the stars. Princess Nari joined him. "Do you ever think about that day at the reception?" she asked. "Do you wonder what would have happened if you had responded differently?" Taman shook his head. "No, I made the right choice. Not because I planned all of this, but because I stayed true to myself. That is all anyone can do, Princess. Stay true to what you believe is right, and let the consequences unfold as they will. And if I had not apologized, if I had remained arrogant, then humanity would have continued on our path without the Velthran Empire. We would have been fine, but I'm glad you chose growth over pride. The galaxy is better for it. We are better for it." They stood together in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds who had helped build a bridge between civilizations. The story that began with an insult and a silent departure had become a tale of wisdom, growth, and alliance. In the years to come, the human Velthran alliance would become a model for other species. The story of the princess who insulted the captain and the captain who simply walked away would be told throughout the galaxy as a lesson in strength, humility, and the courage to choose peace over pride.